Pleasure. Just let you know we started the kennels.
All right, we'll get underway. I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome to the special meeting to consider some tender issues. There are no apologies. Everyone is in attendance.
That sounds so wrong.
We begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we're gathered on, the Gubbi or Kabi people, and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Folks, there are 4 tenders that we're dealing with today. I think it might be prudent if I ask Dorothy Dixer of the CEO to explain why it is that we had to call a special meeting for these tenders.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. As you said, there's 4 tenders here which have been closed and assessed. If we had left those to the ordinary meeting on Thursday night, the staff would have only had really maybe 1.5 working days to get things done before Christmas. By having a special meeting, we'll be able to get the contract signed this week, and the tenderers can hit the ground running early in the new year. So it really is a timing issue to be able to get things moving.
Okay. Item number 1 is Stormwater Infrastructure CCTV Inspections Tender. Any questions for staff? Councillor Jurizovic?
Yeah, guys, on page 4, the paragraph reads, Pipe Management Australia Pty Limited demonstrated clear ability to meet both price and non-price elements, blah, blah, blah. Although the company does not have a head office in the immediate Noosa region, they are in the process of securing a satellite depot on the Sunshine Coast. Also stating that procurement of goods and labour will be purchased from the Noosa Shire as required. Given that we like to see a good element of local content in tenderers and equipment, what safeguards will be in place to ensure this? That they will actually purchase from the Noosa Shire? Are there any apart from their assurances, have we got anything in writing?
They do currently have an ongoing contract with Unity Water, so I believe that's the reason they do have the satellite depot on the Sunshine Coast.
Probably just through the chair, just to add to that, we haven't got any metrics in the contract to force them to purchase within the Shire, but the intent of us having in our probity plan preferred local suppliers, etc. When there was none that actually did.
That was the next question.
So therefore, we will ask those questions, but obviously it's something that we're not enforcing, but they have shown the intent to do that.
Right. So the second question is, I think you've just led to it. Did any of the contractors have any more significant Noosa connectivity with regard to an office and all the rest of it than any of the others?
None are Noosa based at all. There was one with a depot within the Sunshine Coast established, but essentially this is
right, so that's
Brisbane or Gold Coast.
That's
based.
equivalent or as close as we could have got within any of the tenders here. Thank you.
Correct.
Mind you, that's not the only criteria, of course.
No. Just significant. It is a significant criteria in my eyes.
Any further questions, Councillor Wilkie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the report, Alex. Great report, very simple and straightforward. Part A of the recommendation refers to what the tender's for. It's for a company to conduct stormwater infrastructure inspections to pipes, stormwater pipes. I don't know whether it's yourself who can answer this or your companions there, but my understanding is that there was a similar sort of program underway, or we have done similar sort of inspections. Can you tell us a bit about the work that's been done so far and why we need to go to tender to continue that work?
Yeah, so currently we have 14% of our network condition rated. It is our second largest value asset class. So effectively it is quite a large financial asset, and to have condition ratings will map our asset management plans, and that will trigger our renewal programs and so on. So hence sort of why it is an important thing to condition assess.
Probably just to further add to that as well is that it was heading in the direction of being a very financially large contract, and we were doing this piecemeal with local suppliers who weren't geared up, and it wasn't 100% of their profession or their business, and we wanted to go out to the market and test the market, which we have done. And 12 months ago or 18 months ago we had a dabble at this, and we didn't quite get it right, and we pulled the tender, and coming back with better metrics we've been able to do that. And from that first round to this round we've pretty much got some significant I won't say savings because we haven't spent anything yet, but we've seen a great value for money in going out and providing, this is what our network of stormwater is, this is what we estimate our number of pits to be, and this is what we estimate you may discover while you're out there. And they've been able to provide very competitive prices in a very reduced period of time. We were looking at the current rate of that 14%. We've been doing that for nearly 4 years and only got through 14% of the network. We think we'll get through the remainder of that over the next 24 months and have the job done.
So this tender will allow the council to move from a piecemeal approach to stormwater inspection to a more holistic and comprehensive analysis.
Yes.
Yeah,
Councillor, just add to that. Stormwater is one of the asset classes that's different to every other asset class that we have. All the other asset classes we can see. You know, if you walk around a council building, you get a pretty good intuitive idea of what it's like. Ditto with roads or whatever it might be. This one we have you just don't know until you actually get cameras down the pipe. So it's been one of the things I've been bugging Brian for a number of years about this issue, that we need to have our entire system analysed to understand whether we've got any sleepers out there, and if so, what do we do about it? It's good to see we'll get that information.
Okay, I'll move it.
Thank you. Moved Councillor Jackson, seconded Councillor Glasgow. This is a statutory meeting, so you really should stand.
Oh, sorry.
Anyway.
Here.
That's what I was saying.
For next time.
Next
My
time.
apologies.
Do you wish to speak?
I'll just, not for long, I'll just say it, to me, this audit is extremely important. I think our stormwater infrastructure, hidden as it is one of the most important things we have to manage, and with ongoing increases in potential water rises, you know, there are more and more issues with stormwater drainage. So I think a full audit and the ability to then address it is excellent. And clearly, after you've done a lot of work to structure a proper tender process, and we'll do this in an effective manner. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak to this? Put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you very much.
Mark, you're up next. We move on to construction of Black Mountain Road, Black Mountain Corridor Upgrade Tender Award. Any questions, folks?
Yeah, I'll continue along the same
You
road.
really should be standing when you're addressing.
I had forgotten, we got sort of through that other meeting and I completely forgot around it. I'll ask a question along the same line. I didn't see any mention of the level of local content of the tenderers and the winning tender. Can you advise whether they're a local business and what level of local employment they undertake?
Sure. Apologies, Councillor.
Mark,
Sorry?
it's a formal meeting, so you should stand. Then we know who's got the right to talk.
It's been a while. Apologies for not breaking that out in more detail. You'll see on page 9 of 25 in the evaluation spreadsheet there's a contribution to local economy section there. The winning or preferred tenderer at this point in time has actually specified that they're going to use local subcontractors, mainly for the provision of plant, machinery and the like. I don't believe there was a potential contractor that was within the Shire, but I don't believe anything mandatory, the ones being the mandatory requirements were actually having a base in the Shire. So bellwether contractors there, they've actually specified quite clearly their subcontractors, most of which who are local or in the hinterland.
Thanks, mate.
Question?
Councillor Wilkie?
Probably for the CEO or for Director of Infrastructure. The total, this recommendation is asking me to approve a total budget of $1.4 million and approve the tender for 1.2. Has the total project budget, is there been money set aside for that, or will that be accommodated for in a budget review?
So if you have a look on page, just give them the page number up, page 10 at the top there under finance, it lists out what the budget is with a contingency, and underneath that the budget review submission will be required at BR3 if the full contingency is required. If the contingency is not required, the answer is no.
Oh.
Thank you.
I'll move the recommendation.
Seconded Councillor Wilkie. Wish to speak to it, Councillor Jerusalem?
Yes, a long-awaited piece of infrastructure for the people of our hinterland, particularly Black Mountain Road has had some notorious black spots there for a number of years. It's good to see this project finally coming to completion for the safety and amenity of residents in that area.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to it? motion? All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Thanks, Mark. Scott's up next. We go to the Gympie Terrace Stormwater and Corridor Renewal at Noosaville tender award. Or are you filling in, Mark?
Scott's apologies, he's down at
You're
Perigian
deputising.
Beach, 12 block, doing some inspections at the moment. So,
all right. Any curly questions,
I
Mark?
probably do have a question, and it's actually more about the project.
You stand-
Oh, sorry, we're all the same.
Yeah.
We've got
Yes,
loads of
it's probably more about the project, but it says it's starting in February and going to June. Will this work imply traffic obstacles? And yeah,
there will be some localised traffic obstacles. The reason we've gone with a successful tenderer, they're proposing that they can mitigate any full closures by doing a lot of night works.
okay.
So there will be obviously areas, parking bays lost temporarily as they do the works through the corridor, but their methodology and their objective is that the culverts crossing the road that would need a full closure, which is what we were somewhat expecting, they're going to do that under traffic control at night. So there might be a closure at night, but it should be a relatively small impact to the road users.
I just answer that question. One of the trade-offs with work at night is you've also then got noise for adjourning owners, so it's never a clean arrangement. But traffic versus noise, it's a difficult one.
So in relationship to that, it says Gympie Terrace, which isn't so much residential,
No,
but
but there'll be visitors in the
visitors.
accommodation.
Yeah, okay.
Councillor Jerusalem?
So just to clarify, this only relates to the culverts and therefore would only be work that's undertaken under the road surface itself.
You'll see on page 13 of 25, page 12 and 13, we released this work in different packages in case the pricing came in more than we were willing to pay. Most of the work is up until portion 4. We have 4 locations for culvert crossings in preparation for the reseal. So the reason for this project and us delaying the reseal, which I think was planned for a year or two ago, was there's no point ripping up the road to replace culverts once the reseal has been done. So the first phase is really to do all those cross road culverts. They might be left in a kind of temporary condition and then come through and do that full reseal. And as part of that reseal is then putting in the dedicated cycle lanes on Gympie Terrace. So we're striking out a few ducks in one go.
You've actually gone off on a slightly different tangent to where I was trying to go. Is the pipework from the culvert to the river included in the work? And if so, is there any opportunity for litter capture mechanisms to be included in the work?
Apologies, I missed that. There's only one that is going the full length from the road all the way to the river. The rest of them are just purely in the road reserve at this time, mainly because we don't have sufficient funds to complete that full length. When it comes to the gross pollution trap opportunities, there may be some, but they would likely be positioned in the park areas, and that hasn't been part of this scope. The one that's going all the way through the river, I believe, is the one through the boat ramp car park. So all these are really in road reserve areas, which is not where it would go.
Thank you for clarifying.
Looking for a mover?
I'll move it.
Councillor Jackson, seconded Councillor Glasgow. Good boy.
Just to replace.
Anyone wish to speak?
I'll just briefly say again, I think these are extremely important projects, and it's been in the pipeline, so to speak.
Never waste an opportunity.
I think it's excellent, and looking forward to it starting and getting done. Thanks.
Anyone else wish to speak?
Just briefly, I've had a lot of people asking me recently when it's going to rain. I now know from this report it's probably February.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. We move to item 4, Orealla Crescent Sunrise Beach Bridge Replacement.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Moved Councillor Jerusalem, seconded Councillor Wilkie. Any questions for staff? Councillor Stockwell.
I recall
On your tippy toes, please.
Recall that we had a conversation about a rather large Telstra estimate to temporarily relocate fibre optics. Is that included in this price, or is that another additional item, or how would that end up getting resolved?
We've been working extensively with the all the utility owners. I'm just looking for the reference. but in any case, we've agreed with Telstra that rather than necessarily cutting their line and replacing it, we're actually, as part of the scope of the project, going to build a temporary parallel structure, scaffold of some sort, and they're actually just going to lift the cables out and across. So in excess of $1 million we thought it was going to cost us. We're now talking a fraction of that. I think we've provided a provision for those in the finance section. Provision for the relocation of Telstra costs on page 21 of $200,000, which until we do engage them formally, they don't give us a firm quote, but they have talked around that value to actually, and they do all the work themselves, so they will lift it out and put it back. Takes the risk off our contractor if they damage it during that process. So the initial thoughts of having to relocate this for kilometres, we've worked hard and we found a good, I think, temporary solution.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Councillor Gordon.
Thank you. On page 20 of the report under item 5, program, it mentions that in the design phase, Council's project team will work with the contractor to determine the aesthetics, such as curved bridge, railings, patterns on the vertical abutment wall, and will look for opportunities to improve the current amenity. Is that acknowledgement or a recognition that the residents in the area do see this as an entry statement of sorts to Sunrise Beach, and they're willing, through the works here, to see it as an opportunity to take on board some of their comments and aspirations?
I suppose, Councillor, it does provide an opportunity to visit that. Now these works will be invasive, the better term, in that there may be damage to the revetment walls and some of those other structures. We've provided provisional sums for the remediation of what may get damaged, and in that process, if they identify that they may have to strip back more than is expected, there may be an opportunity there to beautify it, if you want to call it that. We can't guarantee that, and the design process is a design construct project. They've provided some proposals around that, but until we get into the design process, understand their solution and their methodology, and we're happy to communicate that through the CWE and the PCG process as the project goes on. There may be an opportunity, but certainly that hasn't been the main scope of the project. But we've asked the contractor that question off the back of the feedback from the community that the current installation is not the most aesthetically pleasing, and if within the the project budget we can seek some features, then we certainly will bring that up and discuss it further.
Thank you.
Councillor Noosaville, wish to speak?
Only an engineer can see beauty in a bridge. Again, another long-awaited project, a bridge that's in need of major structural upgrade, getting to completion in the new year, and I commend the recommendation to councillors to get a move on with this project. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak to it? Put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously, and that concludes the meeting. Thank you for